This is Smiles TV. Welcome to Smiles Television Talk Show. Thank you for tuning in again. You know what? I'm sitting here with an old friend, a buddy of mine.
Why I gotta be old?
And he's
Why
making
does
me
it have
laugh
to be
doing
old?
my intro, and he's not an old friend. He doesn't want to be old,
God.
but he's older than I am. No, that's not true. I'm sitting here with Brian Anthony, who has a wealth of information to share with you. He's a diverse individual who's gone from from East St. Louis, Illinois to St. Louis,
right.
Missouri to Chicago to North Carolina, and who knows where. You're going to learn how to do the same thing. Remember, Jesus Christ was born of a virgin. He was crucified and buried, and he rose on the third day. Confess with your mouth that he is Lord. Believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, and thou shalt be saved. Stay tuned for more Smiles with Brian Anthony. Have you ever wondered how to exceed more in the things that you're interested in doing? You know what? I have. And I'm just blessed to be sitting here with an individual who has just matriculated through life in such an excellent way. And we're going to be starting a new series highlighting individuals of excellence. So my very first guest to kick this off is actually from East St. Louis, Illinois. And he goes by the name of Brian Anthony. And he knows about marketing and public relations and communications and you name it. And he has his own business called Omega Psi Enterprises. Brian, it is so good seeing you.
Yeah, I got the old. I got you. It's good seeing you. It's been a while.
It has been a while. It has been a while. And so, first of all, we want to welcome you to Smiles.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here during the holiday season, for real.
You know what? It is the holiday season, and what a better time to rekindle old friendships. And
Here you go with the old again. Yeah. Lifelong friendships.
Lifelong, that's a better word.
Yeah.
You know what, Brian? People may wonder, why is he there? What is he doing on set there? And people, everybody doesn't know just right off the bat because they're looking at you, but many are used to hearing your voice. Tell us about your background and how you got into the radio business, first of all.
Okay. Well, obviously, I'm from East St. Louis, Illinois, proud to be. Both of my parents were educators, friends of your mother and your father. It was a tight knit group in East St. Louis, as people always talk about. So I started there, went on to school at Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas, where I got the bug of radio. We had a college campus radio station, and that's where I first got my start. And it also was a station that played jazz music. So I killed two birds with one stone because of my musical background. Coming up in the East St. Louis School District in the bands and those kind of things.
And what did you play?
Drums.
You were a drummer.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, drums.
Okay.
From Texas Southern, I went on to work with the American Federation of Teachers.
Okay, I'm going to have to stop you. You jumped over something.
What's
so,
that?
At Texas Southern, did you happen to pledge a fraternity there?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
I'll get to that. Okay. I mean, it would be obvious if the name of the company is Omega Psi Enterprises. Okay. Part of who I am is an Omega. So, yeah, I'm an Omega member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity, Incorporated. Absolutely.
I wish we had some footage of you stepping back in the day.
I'm sure there's some that does exist, but you won't see it.
Okay. So actually, you know, your mom and your sister and I, we're sorority sisters.
Yeah,
you know that Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Absolutely.
And so you come from a great family, a family full of wisdom.
You can say that. Okay. I appreciate that. And, you know, and being able to go from East St. Louis, and I will say this, and I say it all the time when I talk to people that know I'm from East St. Louis, and they go, "You from East St. Louis? You don't act like you're from East St. Louis." And we get that all the time when we're outside of the market. And I go, you know, I'm just like anybody else from East St. Louis. The difference is exposure. The difference is exposure. If you remain in East St. Louis and you continue to do the things that we do in East St. Louis as a close-knit family, then that's what you're going to know. People in St. Louis, the same way, if you don't step outside of your boundaries, you never get a chance to really grow to your potential. Because in every area of the United States and every area of the world, there are different cultures, that teach you different things about how other people were raised.
That's right.
We were fortunate to have educators for parents. So we were kind of ahead of the curve, and we were pressed to make sure that our education was intact. And that's how we were raised. So when you go out and you go out into the world, and I was fortunate to go far away from East St. Louis to start my journey as an adult, it was just me.
Okay.
Mama, daddy, sister, everybody else in the family, nobody else is around. It's about how are you going to live in an environment that you've never been in before. I'm a Boy Scout too. You probably didn't know that too.
I didn't know that part. No.
Argene Sandlin, may he rest in peace, was a great Scoutmaster, and everybody knows him. So the survival skills were already there from my upbringing.
Okay.
Then you have to figure out who it is you're going to be as an adult.
So while in college, I know all of this didn't come together right away.
No, it didn't.
Okay, so if you will, because what I'm trying to do here is share with people that it's possible to go further than you could ever think. And we have challenges, but there are ways to overcome situations and circumstances. If you will, give us a little bit more about your journey.
Journey is always a challenge. If you're striving for a goal or to attain a dream, the challenges are going to be there. It tells you that in the Bible. There's no part of your life that you're going to get through that's going to be easy just because you want to get there. I found that the people that I've come across in my walk of life that I may define as successful, they all have their stories. You can't judge a person by what you see on the outside. You never know what a person's walk in life is about. If you pay attention, this has been my theory, if you pay attention, even to somebody that may be on the downside of life or having a difficulty with life, there's something there to be said that you can gain something from to motivate you in your walk. I always believe that. So, you know, as I left Texas Southern and went into American Federation of Teachers, which was my first what I would call a corporate situation.
Okay.
And that's what we all strive to do. I quickly learned politics. Good, bad, or indifferent. But as we were always taught in school and at Texas Southern, with my craft and with my skill set, you always have to be the best that you can be. You have to be a student of the game. So that's the first thing you have to take care of. If your productivity is intact, then the politics you can manage.
You know, and speaking of politics, quite frequently people may think you're just simply talking about the political structure within our government. You're talking about business politics.
Life politics.
Okay.
Life politics. Think about, you know, I'll bring up East St. Louis because, you know, East St. Louis taught me so many things that prepared me for my journey in the world. Just last year, this high school team that just won state championship went through adversity. They had to go through something that was beyond their control. Came back, some of the kids graduated. I'm sure they still feel a certain way about what transpired last year. But the team that came through this year definitely put their stamp on this year to vindicate last year. You could see it all the way. I could see it just online. You could see it just online. So those are some of the things. You have to go through things in life in order to achieve some of your goals. Politically, let's get back to corporate politics. A lot of people get into the ideology of I'm in corporate America, I can wear this suit and tie, I got this position, I've got this title, I've got six figures, if you're fortunate enough to be making six figures. But at the same time, you're just a number in a bigger picture. And as we've seen over the last 7, 8, 10 years, since prior to President Obama being in office, the economy started getting bad. And how are you going to prepare for that? Because I can assure you that the companies feel that pinch as well. People that are what I like to call civilian life are going through their daily routines, and they're having difficulty just making ends meet, providing for their families. So if they're having difficulty working every day, working 2 and 3 jobs, and still having that difficulty, how are you going to prepare for something that we saw happen at the beginning of President Obama's term, which was the downfall in the economy? And I felt it because I went through it professionally. So you have to prepare yourself by being a student of the game. That's number one. If I don't, I'm not going to say my age, but I still learn stuff every day today. If I'm not doing that, I'm really not living in my craft and in life as well. Okay. Student of the game, and then you have to take the steps to get to the goal that you're trying to get to. Hopefully you've researched that to understand what it's going to take for you to get to that goal, and it just not be a wish.
Wow.
Okay.
You know what? We're going to need to take a quick break, but I
Okay.
want our audience to kind of get a view of some of the things that you've done.
Okay.
Brian Anthony has some great work, and we have some clips to show you. Also, underneath these clips, you'll hear music from Kevin Ellis, who started a band called Dreaming in Color. Now, Kevin is also from East St. Louis, Illinois, and he's a member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. And along with Kevin, the producer was Jeff Lorber. Jeff Lorber is a national songwriter and producer. Sit back and relax. Brian Anthony from East St. Louis, Illinois, an old friend of mine, no, a good lifelong friend of mine.
Yes.
And Brian, we just took a slight break there, but we were talking about the American Federation of Teachers and how you transitioned into the radio industry. And go ahead and continue.
Well,
if you
I
will.
started off, my professional career as a statewide newspaper editor for them and communication specialist, which is my degree. My degree is I'm a Bachelor of Arts in journalism. So that was my first job, my second job after being in television for a little bit. Then from there, I went and came back to East St. Louis, worked here for a minute at Merritt's Travel Company out in Fenton. We did incentive programs for people like Cadillac, General Electric, and I wrote their pre-trip information.
Okay.
It's something a little different, it goes with that journalism degree. And then just some things spiraled in terms of professionally. It wasn't really what I wanted to do.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is that what you wanted to do? And
No, it was what the expectation was.
Okay.
For a journalist degree and that kind of thing. I was trying to follow that particular dream, but I also knew in writing on a state level that everybody has an editor. And I can take a picture, I can take a story, put a very good productive spin on it, very positive, but that's not always what sells. Okay.
Okay.
So once that became apparent and I couldn't be creative, then I said I got to figure out something else to do. So I tried other things. And then it ended up being back in radio. I said, well, if I'm going to go through this kind of political situation to try and be in management some kind of way, I might as well go back to my passion. And I gained that passion at the College Station when I was at Texas Southern. So that was my passion. It included music. I felt at that time that we could build good radio stations across the country and have better content.
Right, and tell us a little bit more about that, because I understand that you were really the catalyst in building
Well,
stations.
a lot of people remember Z100, the original, I think, KISS 100 when it was first jazz.
Right.
I was a part of that. Just on there, but everything else has been as a program director. Worked with some of the great St. Louis personalities, Lou Father Times, The Real JR, Jockenstein, Jim Gates, and the list goes on. I've been blessed to be able to not just be in a position of management, but learn from them as well.
And you know what? Being in the industry, you get an opportunity to meet a lot of people.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get starstruck or whatever. How did you keep yourself from being in awe with some of the individuals with whom you had to interview, and just go ahead and interview them for the sake of the interview, for the public's sake?
I don't know if you can always remove yourself from being in awe, because I met some tremendous people. This industry has afforded me to meet Stevie Wonder, Nancy Wilson, Lou Rawls, some of the greats that I grew up listening to, Barry White, Luther Vandross, and the list goes on. You have to remember that it's a business.
Right.
While we're having fun, it's still a business. And the fun of the business is being able to in the role of the people that listen to the radio station and try and find out this information while you're in that position that they would want to know.
What was your worst interview?
Do you actually think I'm going to tell you
come
my
on,
worst
Bear.
interview?
Come on, Brian.
I don't know if I can recall a worst interview, because
Okay, good
I
answer.
always try to make sure I put forth a great interview. I always do. I can remember when I was at Smooth Jazz. I think it was Smooth 106.5 in St. Louis, the only real contemporary jazz station they've had. I got a chance to interview Pieces of a Dream.
Okay.
Pieces of a Dream I knew from college radio. We brought them to Houston 3 times when I was at the college radio station. So it was fun rekindling a friendship that we had for over like 10 years, and I had lost track of.
Well, okay. What was your best interview?
Wow.
And best could mean anything to you. It could mean because you were able to pull out some information that nobody else knew, or it could have been just a smooth interview.
I don't, I really don't know if there is a best interview. I can tell you a funny story.
Okay.
Shantae Moore, who is a fabulous singer, who I just think is one of the most gorgeous women in the world. And my wife always goes, yeah, whatever, and I get that.
Okay.
I met her in Chicago when I was living in Chicago and working in Chicago radio, and all my reps always knew that Shantae was, anytime you bring her up, it was like, she got a new record out? Oh, okay. When do you need this played? Okay. And it goes on, sometimes like that, but she always has great material. When I finally met her, I couldn't even get hello out of my mouth, and they wore me out, and they still mess with me about that today in Chicago.
You know what? Now I'm gonna give you a funny story. I
What's
did
that?
have a chance to meet Stevie Wonder, and I had to present him with a proclamation from the city of East St. Louis, and it was in Braille. And so I gave him the proclamation, and he said, "Sister, this is upside down."
That's embarrassing.
Oh,
The hardest thing I've ever done as a public speaker is speak at my sister's investiture.
Yeah. Now let's talk real quickly about your sister. And many may or may not know. Brian's sister is Stacey Yandle, who was appointed by President Obama to the Southern District in Illinois as a federal judge.
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
Right. So that's that's a step away from Supreme Court.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
Yeah, it was. Obviously, we're very proud of her. That goes without saying. East St. Louis is proud of her.
And she's my soror.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
The turnout was just tremendous.
Yeah.
When I got on stage and got a chance to see my life just in front of me, it was a great feeling to know that was family.
Yeah.
To come back and support her in one of the greatest accomplishments she's ever had.
Wow.
But to get up in that environment, you got judges behind you. I'm a radio personality. I'm an entertainment personality. I had to learn how to balance quickly what was formal, what was maybe perceived to be funny, and what was not going to be perceived to be funny. And she also gave me a time limit and was sitting in the front row with her legs crossed, just looking up at me like looking at her watch, and I'm like not trying to watch her. That was the most difficult, but it was a great honor to be on stage with her in that environment. My son also got an opportunity to hold the Bible as she was being sworn in, so it was a great time.
Okay, so now we talked a lot about the radio industry and some other things. I don't know if you want to skip some things in between. If not, go ahead and talk about it. But I definitely want our audience to know about the Omega Psi Enterprises that you started.
Omega Psi Enterprises actually started when I was in Chicago radio. One of those periods of times when you're in programming, you understand when you get hired, you're going to be fired at some point. That's just the nature of the game. But during one of those periods when I was unemployed, I started this business basically doing all the stuff that I was doing in radio. Promotions and writing press releases and those kind of things that were a part of my background. I also helped put a radio station on the air in Peoria, Illinois.
That's my stomping grounds. I went to Bradley.
With an independent owner and helped him to develop an operations for his new radio station, which he was later able to sell and make a good profit off of. I left St. Louis in 2003 with an opportunity with Clear Channel to launch a new radio station in Columbia, South Carolina. Doc Winter, who was our brand manager on a national level, also the audience in St. Louis is familiar with him from The Quiet Storm, was my boss and sent me down there to launch this new radio station in a market, surprisingly, Strom Thurmond lived in, and it was the capital of Columbia, of South Carolina, and that's also where they had the controversy about the Confederate flag flying on the state ground. So I had to change my whole mentality, understand the market, had a hip hop radio station in the Bible Belt, and how was this going to be successful with 4 other radio stations already in the market.
Talk about challenges, huh?
Talk about the person who ran the top station in the market was Mike Love, who is also Calvin Glenn from East St. Louis. So I've competed against him before, and it was one of those situations where you're going to compete with one of your friends, but it's business. And after that, you know, I was sent to Greensboro, North Carolina to launch another station. At this point, I'm getting close to the 50-year-old mark.
Okay.
I've had a great run in radio, and you got to start thinking, when and if you lose this job, will you get another opportunity? So I started thinking about it earlier than it actually happened.
Okay.
And I never really put it into full play because I didn't have the pieces around me I felt that I could go out and do that kind of standard of business that I wanted to do. So now, 7.5 years ago, that opportunity came because Clear Channel started cutting when the economy got bad. Thousands of people lost their jobs across the country.
Right.
And I was one of those people. What am I going to do? What now? Nothing was moving in radio, so you had to figure out what is it that your next step is going to be if this is it.
Wow, and you know, these are some of the things that people need to know. You lost a job.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it didn't stop you.
You know, in that situation, I talked about challenges earlier. You can't stop. You know, I came up where quitting was not one of those situations where that was an option for you.
Okay.
You have to figure it out. And we come up in a city in East St. Louis that trains you for any situation you're going to ever be presented with in the world. So I started thinking, what is it that I can do that I can make money with and still have my passion? That's where Omega Bay Enterprises came about. Yeah.
Okay, so if anyone is interested in services that you have to offer, how can they make contact with you?
You can contact me. Obviously, I'm on Facebook. The business is under Omega Bay Enterprises. My number is also listed on there. I wouldn't give it out here, obviously. But you know, we cover services for small businesses, nonprofit organizations, and medium-sized businesses. We'll do corporate business if necessary.
Okay.
We do website development, content management on the backside, keeping the websites fresh. We do social media stuff all the time. I also do entertainment marketing. I do radio stations. I launched a radio station for Forsyth Tech, which is in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, just 2 years ago.
Okay.
For that particular college. So I still do a lot of radio consulting work. I have a private car service now that I've added to my event planning. I also do special event planning. I've been involved with developing golf tournaments for the Winston-Salem Urban League in Winston-Salem. I was on their board of directors as well. Maya Angelou, before she passed, we did a 3-day event to launch a new building in Winston-Salem. We did a corporate dinner where she was honored, and we were very privileged to have her there as well and present her with an honorarium of some sort. I've also done concerts, Tamela Mann and James Fortune, 2 of the gospel greats in the business. When Tamela was running 17 weeks with her single from 2 or 3 years ago, I forgot the name of the song just that quick. Take Me to the King. Take Me to the King.
Right.
We had a great show with her in Greensboro.
Okay.
2,000 people showed up for that. And it's very difficult to draw on gospel concerts, but we did a good job of doing it.
You know what, and you have given your passion, you've shared your heart, and this might be redundant, but I really, really want the individuals, especially in East St. Louis, and other communities that are like ours, and communities that may not be like ours. If you had to tell a student some lasting words to help inspire them to keep going, to have endurance, what would that be?
Wow. First, have thick skin. Block out all distractions that will prevent you from achieving your goals. Family, mother, dad, sister, brother, doesn't matter.
Wow.
Dream. Never stop dreaming and never stop giving up on your dreams. The worst you can do is fall short, but at least if you're dreaming and you're trying to attain that, think about how short you are really reaching that goal as opposed to starting over from fresh. You're that much closer. I'll put some biblical stuff in here because I firmly believe, you know, opportunities come. Never stop knocking on the door. Keep knocking, because you never know that one time where you say, you know, I'm tired of this, I've had enough of knocking. You turn around, that door opens, you're gone.
Wow.
That opportunity is there and you're not there for it. So be a student of the game, continue to always educate yourself, learn, because technology is forcing the world to turn quicker than it was really ready to turn in a lot of cases.
You know what? You sound like you have a book in you.
Nah, I don't have a book in me yet. I wouldn't mind doing a series of books.
Okay.
The problem with that is I've been blessed to be exposed to a lot of different situations. A lot of names would have to be changed. A lot of situations would have to be altered, and I'd rather just tell the truth.
Okay. Brian, I am so glad that you took time to talk
Thank you.
with us on Smiles.
You said some great things about me in the beginning, and I appreciate that. I don't know how much of them are true or how many of them are true, but I appreciate
They
it.
are all true. And you know what, Brian? I try to ask most of my guests, if you get the opportunity, will you come back to Smiles?
Of course. There's always, you know, I tell people, we don't have, having been in radio and being consumed by corporate radio, we don't have that voice anymore in our communities. And it's situations like these, opportunities like these, that get opportunities for people that watch your show
Right.
to hear different things that they may not hear sitting at home watching it through the TV.
That's right.
So we've got to take back our media sources. We've got to take back our message that goes out into the community. I mean, it's very important. Yeah, of course I would.
Brian Anthony. That's why he's an Anthony, right? Brian, thank you again.
You're quite welcome.
It's been exciting and wonderful talking with my homeboy, Brian Anthony from East St. Louis, Illinois. He's been all over the country and he's doing some great things. And guess what? You can do the same. Remember, only what you do for Christ will last.